What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode. Coach Joe here with Heartletics.com. And today's episode, we're going to be diving right into hey, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be hard. But here's the reality being in shape can be hard, right? It's definitely hard to get there. I'm not going to, sugarcoat it and say it's easy, but also being out of shape is hard. And so, the reason why I want to kind of talk a little bit more in depth about this on today's episode is because we all have a decision to make, plain and simple. Every single day we are faced with many different decisions to make. And as I recently redid the entire coaching program, not just the 12-week transformation program, but then also the mindset coaching phases afterwards, one of the things that we go over in detail a lot is having endless amounts of motivation. How do we become a better leader? How do we lead better by example? And how do we just, really make sure that we're preparing ourselves to become stronger mentally and emotionally? You see, the first 12 weeks, this is where we go over your fat loss habits for sustainable, right, longevity health. So, we're going over that in detail, your 7 essential fat loss habits in your first 12 weeks. But then I always say it like this, and I'm going to remind you guys that anybody can do anything when life is easy, right? Plain and simple. Anybody can do anything when life is easy. It's when life throws you these curveballs, when life throws you these adversities. And at the end of the day, that's why these mindset coaching programs and phases exist. And so in the last coaching phase, this is where we go over how to become a better leader, endless amounts of motivation, but how do we mix and match the 7 essential fat loss habits with the mindset coaching phases, right? Some of those habits within there for a complete transformation. That way, guess what? When life throws you these curveballs, these are just mental reps. You go to the gym, you're working out your biceps, right? And this is the same thing, just with the mental game now. And so it's preparing you to become a better leader. It's preparing you to just become a better doer of yourself, right? A better doer of yourself where you're taking action, you're taking ownership, knowing that, hey, this is your life. And, when life throws you those curveballs, instead of saying why me? Instead, you're saying hey, try me. I got this. And it's that internal confidence. And so I want to give you a little bit more in depth about that internal confidence in today's episode. So we're going to be talking about 2 different types of hards. But I heard this real estate agent guy talk about it on this one live event. And he said this quote that really kind of stuck out that I want to kind of talk about before we get into the 2 different types of hards, which is it's supposed to be hard, but you choose success, right? If you choose success, success will carry you forward. And there's so much truth to that, right? Because at the end of the day, anytime you do something that's outside your comfort zone, let's face the facts, it's hard. It's going to be difficult. It's a learning curve. Nobody went throughout their life, right? Just coming out the womb and knowing how to, brush their teeth, knowing how to drive a car, right? Knowing how to, be prepared in life, learning how to make money, buy a house, whatever the case may be. No, you had to go through progressions of life, right? And you had to usually get somebody to kind of help you, kind of show you the ropes. But ultimately, you understand that, hey, looking back at it, those things that were hard, right? Maybe like driving, for example, was hard in the beginning, but now you can do it easy. Now, so often that when you drive to work, you don't even remember how you got there. It's just like your subconscious mind kind of took over in depth where you don't really remember too much about how you got that at all. You don't remember stopping at the red lights. You don't remember, the cars in front of you. You don't remember anything. You just kind of went on this daze. And so what I want to teach you guys in today's episode is how to make a better decision. I'm not saying an easy decision because both decisions are hard, right? When it comes to doing anything outside your comfort zone, it's hard. But here's the reality of what's inside your comfort zone: death, depression. I like to say it's like the dark void. So, what is it? It's no ambition, there's no inspiration, there's no drive. Because at the end of the day, you might get it inside your comfort zone, oh yeah, I want this so bad. I want this so bad. But then guess what? Actually putting through with the actions, let's say you're oh man, I'm 30 pounds overweight right now. I really want to lose some weight, right? I want it so, so bad. And so you sign up for a gym membership. And then you realize here that okay, cool, I don't really know what to do. And, maybe people are looking at me, so I'm just going to start, walking around on the treadmill. And then you get that shiny object, right? Where you're still in your comfort zone, right? It's like, okay, hey, we're stepping outside a little bit. At least we showed up to the gym, but that's it. And then all of a sudden, what happens? Right? Go back to your old ways. Maybe you stop seeing results. Maybe like, hey, it turns to the winter months here. That's going to be approaching here shortly, at least here in Cleveland, Ohio. And that bed's a little bit more comfortable, right? It's a little bit colder outside, and we stop going. And then eventually, right, we go back to our old ways because we're still inside that comfort zone, right? We're not prepared mentally nor emotionally to embrace and challenge ourselves to step outside our comfort zone. So here's the decision that I want to challenge you guys listening to this podcast episode all about is decide on making better choices. I always say it like this: you're only one decision away from a completely different life, hands down. But you need to decide on making better choices. Both decisions that whatever what you're faced with, it's hard, right? You take, the red pill, it's hard. You take the blue pill, it's hard. Regardless, it's hard. But where the suffering comes from is either going to be growth or it's going to be depression. There's going to be suffering regardless. And that's the mental altitude that you guys need to try to adapt into your life. Man up, right? Understand that it's going to be hard. Understand that there's going to be some suffering. But what's at the other end of suffering? Either more pain or greatness. You are ultimately deciding which options you want in your life with your decisions right now. So, for example, if let's say you want more pain at the other end of suffering, so that might be like, hey, deciding to feed the bad wolf and sit around the couch, eat, Doritos and watch Netflix and not care at all, right, about your health. You're so, complacent, compliant. You've been in this funk, right, for let's say 5, 10, 15, 20 years of on and off again, trying different things, which it's usually around the same thing: fasting, cardio, or cutting out your carbs. But something clicks every year, typically around New Year's resolution, where you're like, oh man, I should really lose some weight. Everybody's all trying to lose some weight. Let me do it too. And then you go back to the same things in the past that never actually led to success. So guess what? You continue to suffer, 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 and more pain, 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 pain. And even though you're not feeling pain now, face the facts here. Stop what you're doing and just ask yourself, where am I going to be at with my health in the next 10 years? If you have more energy, more confidence, better health, you feel even more youthful, then you're doing all the right things today. If you're not going to feel that way, you're doing the wrong things. Now, here's the flip side, right? Because you're ultimately faced with two different decisions, right? So you can decide to, choose something, and whatever you decide, once again, there's going to be some suffering, either now or suffering later, either pain now or greater pain later in life. So many people forget about the cost of inaction. Everybody wants to know, what's the price of the investment, Joe? What's the cost of inaction? Are you going to continue to suffer more and more? Well, how is that affecting your sex life with your spouse? Right? No stamina, lacking confidence. Like, is that the type of person they married? Is that affecting your relationship with your kids? Maybe lacking energy to play with them, right? You're realizing this, man, that lifestyle only just one hourglass tips upside down. Joe's always saying that. And we're in full control over the decisions that we make, whether we want that sand going down fast or slow at the bottom. Because at the bottom, that's just death. And guess what? You're not going to the graveyard with your bank account. You're going there with your memories, your experiences here on earth. And so, do you want to continue living this life where you're deciding to make these choices where you're suffering and continue to suffer, but it only gets harder for you? To where your memories are, man, when I go to the graveyard, you're like, I wish I would have took action. I wish I would have took more risk. I wish I would have done something a lot sooner rather than later. And who knows, maybe that's what makes that a lot, let's face the facts here, that deathbed come a lot sooner, which is unfortunate, but a lot of guys, they don't forget, they keep on forgetting about that their daily decisions is what really, dictates their life. Now, that's dark, right? Like, literally. Basically, long story short, what I just said, if you don't care about your health, odds are, right, you're probably going to die a lot sooner. That's just the reality. That's the hard facts of it, right? The other reality is this, is monkey see, monkey do. You're probably also not being a better leader for your spouse, maybe also your kids, maybe also your community, maybe also, your coworkers even. Everybody's job here on earth is to honestly make this place a better place than how we found it. At least that's my mission statement, right? And so, how many times can I inspire somebody, whether it's posting content, whether it's coming out here recording a podcast, whether it's, signing up a new member, whatever the case may be, to just leave that effect on somebody? Because at the end of the day, that's the most valuable currency there is. And you all have that decision to make. But so many people are deciding to choose, this stuck in a rut, this, oh, I'm just going to stay in my comfort zone, the choosing the hard, which leads to more suffering and more pain down the road mentality. Instead of realizing, hey, let's put on our big boy pants. Let's realize here that at the end of the day, life is hard, but if we decide to choose success, it's going to be a lot easier, because at the other end of the suffering, there's actually going to be greatness to the end of our story. Not more pain, not more suffering, but actually greatness. So what does that mean? Well, I'll say it like this. If you're not working out now, starting to work out might not be the easiest thing in the world for you. But eventually, if you're doing the right things, that's, let's say, everything that we talk about at Heartletics with our 7 essential fat loss habits, which, hey, we have a free guide that you can simply download wherever you want at heartletics.com. Just go check it out. And if you're doing the right things when it comes down to, let's say, working out now, and you enjoy doing that and it's sustainable, guess what? On the other end of suffering is greatness, because you're going to have more energy. You're going to create better habits, right? You're going to be a lot healthier. So suffer now, maybe waking up a little bit earlier, maybe going to sleep a little bit earlier. Maybe instead of, sitting around on the couch after work, you're just going for a walk with the kids instead. Oh, now you're creating better habits. You see how that kind of falls, right? You see how that kind of stems in? You're doing something that's good for you. You're being selfish, treating yourself as a priority, which you should, and your kids are benefiting from that. Your spouse is benefiting from that. All because you decided to choose the hard option, which led to success. And sometimes the hard option, right, is very difficult to make. But regardless, guys, both decisions are tough. You got hard over here, right? More pain, more suffering. You got hard over here. Suffering first, greatness later. But this suffering is usually a lot harder suffering than this suffering over here. It's just that this suffering over here is longevity of suffering, more pain. This suffering over here is a lot harder at first, but eventually there's the greatness. In terms of, think about like somebody going to, in the terms of the military. They got to go through, boot camp, basic training, right? They die as a civilian, they come out a soldier. It's the same thing. Like sometimes you need to kill yourself of your bad habits. Sometimes you need to starve this bad wolf that keeps on feeding you all these lies, saying that you're not good enough. You never will be. It's time you start treating yourself as a priority. It's time that you start treating yourself with respect. And like I said, so many guys, and this is why we made our mindset coaching phases, because so many guys out there, they're mentally and emotionally weak. Anybody can do anything when life is great, when life is easy, plain and simple. But when life throws you those adversities, and remember, they're always going to come. That's the inevitable. The stress, the drama, right? The unknown. Guess what? It's going to happen. You can't predict the future. But if you're more mentally prepared, right? And you've been working on your mental muscle, guess what? You're not going to go back to your old ways. You're not going to go back to feeding the bad wolf. You're actually going to man up. You're going to be able to get through that life adversity a lot faster because you're more mentally prepared. It's like, think about if you've been working out for years. It's a lot easier, right? To, let's say, take a month off and then go back to working out. It's a lot easier to get right back into it. But now think about it. Let's say you haven't been working out for years. Let's say you recently just started working out and it's only been 1 week. And then let's say you take a month off. Well, guess what? It's a lot harder to go back to the gym and work out because you haven't built up the muscles. You haven't built up the characters, right? You haven't built up the attributes. You haven't built up the mental calluses, right? And you can see that progression. There's nothing there yet. So there's no incentive for you to get back. Guys, I'm a firm believer that, like, at the end of the day, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Plain and simple. And stop thinking to yourself, oh, but I'm working out now. Oh, and I'm going to the gym and I'm eating healthy now and I'm all doing all these right things now. Congratulations. I bet you life is great for you right now. But how you do one thing is how you do everything. I want to know, what are the decisions that you're making when life throws you these curveballs? What are the decisions, the habits that you have within your own lifestyle right now when life throws you stress? Do you run back to your comfort zone? Do you go back to your old ways? Or do you decide to take life by the horns, march on head for first? So many guys out there are so weak minded. And the reason why, it's because look at their environment. Look at the people that they're surrounding themselves with. Like, this is why Heartletics is honestly so successful as not just a fat loss coaching program, but a mindset coaching program. It's because of our environment, meaning our community groups, meaning hundreds of guys, dozens of coaches being there to support you 24/7 and change your identity. Les Brown said it best: birds of a feather flock together. If you surround yourself with losers in life, guess what? You're going to subconsciously become a loser. If you surround yourself with winners in life, guess what? You're going to become a winner. And that's why we always say that at Heartletics, like, our community groups is filled with nothing but winners that want to see you have success. They all have that Michael Jordan mindset, that champion mentality, and you can have it too, as long as you're surrounding yourself with those types of people. I bet you anything that most guys, if you look at the people that they hang around with, right? The sum of the 5 friends that they hang around with, they're out at the bars, right? Sunday, they're watching their favorite sports teams play. And, it's these guys that's typically out of shape, but then you're yelling at somebody like, oh, you should have done this. You should have done this. You should have, like, if they're actually like playing the game. I used to see that all the time back when I would go to the bars and watch boxing matches and MMA fights. And being an MMA fighter and a boxer, right? Like, that's so disrespectful. Like, hold on, dude. You're sitting there eating your nachos, right? Drinking your beer. You're literally, like, your butt cheeks are hanging over the bar stool, and you got like slobber all over your grease, and you're going to yell at that guy saying he should have done that? Have you ever been in that situation where a grown-ass man's on top of you trying to elbow you right in the face and beat the living crap out of you, and you're giving him advice? Like, hold on here, buddy. Literally, here's the reality, guys. Who are you hanging around with? The only people that I keep in my life is the people that want the best for me. I'm going to give you an analogy right now before we close things up. Have you ever heard the analogy about crabs being in a bucket? You can put all these crabs into a bucket, okay? And guess what? Eventually, one of the crabs is going to say, man, there's no lid on this bucket. Let me escape, okay? So what happens? That one crab that says, oh man, I heard Coach Joe's podcast. I got to start taking action. I got to do something about this, right? Well, guess what? They start trying to climb out that bucket. But then what happens? Nah, their buddies, all those other crabs, says, no. If we're suffering, you got to suffer too. And they pull you back down. No crabs escape the bucket. No lid being on top. Another great analogy is just like, think about this. The people that you're hanging around with, honestly, the people that's in your life, would you go out to war with them? Like, everybody says that, but like, literally, like, are they going to take a bullet for you out in war? Are you going to take a bullet for them? Like, that's the reality, that the mindset shift that you guys need to make in your own lives. It's serious, because guess what? Your life is serious. At least it is to me. That's why I make these podcast episodes. That's why I'm over here losing my voice constantly, right? Because I'm just here yelling at a computer screen, right? Hoping my voice gets heard. Why? Because someone's going to listen to this. And it just takes one person, and guess what? One mental flip of the switch up. And guess what? That person decides to make a change. That person decides to take ownership. That person decides to prioritize themselves first and foremost, once and for all, and decide to become a battery, right? And recharge himself so he can pour back into others. And that person is going to change his life. And that changed life person, guess what? It's going to have an effect on other people. And that's why I make these episodes. It doesn't matter if millions of people are listening to this or one person. All I'm trying to do is change one person's life each and every day. And that's it, fellas. So, guys, if you are a part of the Heartletics Nation, you're already a member of Heartletics, here's your call to action today, right? I want you to go inside the community group, tag everybody, and say, today is hard, so tomorrow can be easy. Because that's the reality, fellas. And if you're somebody that's just listening from the outside in, right, tuning in today's episode, first and foremost, thank you. If you got any value at all, please make sure to share this episode, maybe on your Facebook page or with a friend or with a loved one, whatever the case may be. If you got any value, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to definitely, give this a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And here's the reality. Everybody has a decision to make, but there's always going to be two different hearts. The suffering that you go through today, is it going to lead you more pain down the road tomorrow, or is it going to lead you to greatness? You're only faced with one simple decision each and every day. And my hope is that you just challenge yourself. Take a step back and say, hey, what is it going to become the better decision? Not the easy, not the hard, the better decision for me to make. That's it. And start prioritizing yourself. And I promise you, if you do that, you're going to change your life dramatically. And that's what we help guys do over at Heartletics. So if you guys want any more information about that, like I said, we have a free fat loss guide also. Be sure to check that out. Once again, guys, this has been Coach Joe with the Heartletics podcast, and I'll talk to you guys all next time. Peace out, Girl Scouts.